One of the things that I get asked about the most when people are talking to me about this whole getting a Greece visa and then getting a Greek residence permit is health insurance. Because it is required for the visa and it is also required for the residence permit. And obviously, if you're not working here, you're not going to have access to the public, it's not health, I mean, it is health insurance, but you're not going to have access to that unless it's an emergency. Like obviously, if you're in a car crash, they're not going to take you to the emergency room and say, no, we're not going to treat you. But if you want to go see a doctor, or if you have an emergency that's maybe not so life-threatening, you're going to need insurance. So first I'm going to tell you what I have and what it covers. Then I'm going to tell you a little bit more about some of the requirements for both the visa and the residence permit for Greece. So I have something called, and I had to go look it up, GeoBlue Travel, Medical, and International Health Insurance. I was calling it something else before. And I had this when I applied for the visa because it is related to a travel or to a health insurance that I had back in the US. So the GeoBlue plan has two different kinds of things. One is for travel insurance, so you buy it before you're going on your dream trip of a lifetime and you want to make sure that, you know, if you have a medical emergency, you're covered. But it's not going to cover you for things like doctor's visits or any kind of lab testing. The other one, the international health insurance, is geared towards expats, and that is what I had. And it is what I had when I applied for my initial national visa, the D visa. At the time, I had the kind that covered me both here in Greece and in the US, because at the time I thought I would be going back and forth more often, and then the events of 2020 happened. So that didn't happen, and I really needed to cut back, because if you're familiar with American health insurance, you know that it is very expensive because healthcare in the US is not subsidized by the government in any way, and everything that you do is private. So now I have a little bit less expensive plan, and it covers me in Greece, and then it covers me for emergencies in the US. I believe it is for 21 days at a time. I'm not sure if there's like a limit on how many times you can go to the US. I haven't really looked into that because I really only go home once a year. So if you're going back to the US more often and you need to see your doctors on a regular basis there, then you're gonna need to have coverage both in the country you're in and in the US. Obviously, if you're not from the US, then you don't need the US coverage because you probably have something else in your home country. I pay about $330 roughly a month. I know that's a lot, but I've never had to pay out of pocket here in Greece for anything that I've done. I have visited private doctors for annual checkups. I have visited private doctors when I've been sick, and I've also gone to a private hospital when I was not feeling well and really felt like I couldn't wait to go see a doctor. This was last October. Some of you might remember the videos where I couldn't breathe at all. The only thing I haven't really used it for is to cover prescriptions. It does cover that if you have the prescription from the doctor and the receipt from the pharmacy, but because the cost of medicine is so low here in Greece, it just hasn't been worth it to me to submit it, because I think it only covers a percentage of it. And like my regular medications that I take, I think if I buy all of them together, I pay, and I don't buy all of them every month, so I pay less than 20 euros a month for my monthly medications. So it just doesn't seem, I don't know, worth my time to gather all the documentation, fill out the form, and submit it. So it is what it is. Now, I did have to submit something I had to have a COVID test when I was sick. Fortunately, this insurance has covered all of the coronavirus things. So when I've had to be tested when I wasn't well, they covered that 100%. And I had been asked by the doctor to get a COVID test, and that was the reason it's covered. It does not cover it if you're testing to travel. I did submit it, but they said no. I said, okay, well, it was worth a shot, right? So it's been really good for me. You know, that emergency room visit was probably pretty expensive. And then when I still wasn't feeling well later, And so I went to a doctor and she ordered a bunch of tests, even I think it's called an EKG. No, it's the kind where it's the ultrasound on the heart, just to make sure that the breathing problems were not part of a heart condition. I didn't pay for any of that. So that was pretty amazing to me. And that was at a private hospital here. I would go to the public hospitals here. I think they're fine, but with everything that's happening right now, I'm trying to limit my exposure. So I'm not going to a public hospital, particularly as the public hospital near me is the coronavirus hospital here in Athens. So I'm avoiding those. So I don't know how this works at a public hospital. I imagine that you would need to pay up front and then get reimbursed by GeoBlue. Now, GeoBlue has been amazing at getting me reimbursed. So I submitted the lab for the coronavirus test and I had been paid in, I think it was less than 10 days. So it's really good for me. There are lots of options. And the cost varies greatly from plan to plan. I did a lot of research on this when I was trying to lower the initial cost of this. And you just need to find out what works for you, because obviously everybody's medical needs are different. Because if you're never really sick or you don't have any like chronic conditions like I do, then you may be able to get away with a cheaper plan that doesn't cover so much. Now, when I went to go apply for the residence permit, my lawyer did not think that this plan would cover the requirements for the residence permit. I was like, okay. So they referred me to an insurance agent here in Greece, and it was the bare minimum to cover the residence permit requirements. And I looked at my policy today to see what it covers, because I couldn't remember, and it covers 15,000 euros a year for any hospitalizations. So, but then I would have to pay they pay 80% and then I pay the rest. So I may have gotten scammed a little bit on that. I'm not 100% sure, but the cost of the insurance was only 109 euros for the entire year. So in order to just facilitate this process and not have to then go have the appointment and them say, no, that insurance isn't enough, I just wanted to get it over with. I bought the insurance. It was good for a year, and it's kind of a backup to my insurance, which I think is kind of good, because I think if I did go to the hospital here, I would have to pay out of pocket up front. So this is kind of good. I did ask them about getting coverage for private doctors and things, and they needed all this other information from me, and I just didn't have time to gather all that by the time I needed this, so I decided to forgo all that. Now, if you don't need coverage in your home country, then there is a possibility that you can get insurance here in Greece at a much cheaper rate. However, it may not cover the things that you want to cover, so it's something that you will have to investigate and really talk to the agent and ask them everything that it covers. The insurance agent that I dealt with to get this hospitalization coverage was really great at explaining everything that they would need and what it would cover. So they're pretty knowledgeable, and they know all the rules that are necessary to get it. My insurance here in Greece, I will link to their website. I don't know the name of it off the top of my head, but there are lots of different options. As far as the requirements for the visa, they used to have an amount of like dollar amount that the insurance you had for the visa needed to cover. I can't find that anymore, so I'm kind of wondering if they've changed the requirements in terms of the amount. So if you're doing this, I suggest asking the consulate or the embassy in your country that you're applying in what that needs to be. They also needed a letter from the insurance company, like stating what is covered in dollar amount. Mine, the GeoBlue, had a place on their website where it says visa letter. So it was easy to just go and request that, and I think in an hour I got the letter back from them. So that was easy, and the consulate was pretty used to seeing this particular insurance. Like they were like, oh yes, they're fine. So that was easy. Again, for the residence permit, they thought I needed something else. I just pulled out the paperwork to see if there was an amount on there. It didn't say, but again, my insurance covers me, it's like 15,000 euros a year. So the insurance agency said that this was the minimum requirement to cover the residence permit. So we'll say that that's the minimum, but this was last year, so it could change. And I don't know if this is going to change when I go to renew. We'll find out. I'm not even sure at this point when I need to submit for renewal, so we'll see what happens. So I think that's it for insurance. In terms of health insurance, I don't have any other kinds of insurance here in Greece. I don't have renter's insurance. I don't have car insurance or homeowner's insurance because I don't have any of those things. I don't even know if renter's insurance is a thing here. It probably is. It's probably something I need to look into. But these are the requirements that you will need to like cover if you're applying for either the visa or the residence permit. I have a couple of more living in Greece as an expat videos planned, so if you have any questions that I haven't covered in previous videos, please leave me a comment below and either I will answer you in the comment or I will make a whole video for you. All right guys, I will see you in the next video.